Baruchim Avon to everybody here. Thanks again to our post-Torah links and to the sponsor of Laundry Time. I just want to share a quick story as an introduction, and then I'll see through a shir. There was a poor woman in Baghdad who her minhag was every day she would prepare three batches of dough, and with those batches of dough, one she would feed her family with, one she would give away to the poor, and one she would sell to make her daily living. So she made her 3 batches of dough, and then Ani comes knocking on the door. He says he has nothing to eat. She graciously gives him 1 batch of the dough, knowing that she had it already pre-designated to give her tzedakah from that chelik. Shortly after that, another Ani comes and says, I have nothing to eat, no food, I'm going to die. And she decides, she'll forego her business for today, and she'll give this Ani this second batch of dough as well. She's sitting there, she's preparing the 3rd one that's going to feed her family, and suddenly a big gust of wind comes and blows the dough right out the door, and she loses track of it, she doesn't see it anymore. She's totally tzebrach, and she goes running to the Ben Ish Chai, who was the Rav at the time, and she says, I don't understand, Chacham, explain it to me. I'm trying to do the best I can, I give extra, more than I can, and instead it looks like I get punished for it. Like whatever I had little left for my family is gone now. And Oida Medaber, she's still talking over there, and in comes 3 soggy fishermen who had been fishing on the river. And they come in together and they say, you won't believe what just happened to us. We were out on the river and suddenly like a squall developed and our boat got a crack. We started taking on water. We were totally in danger of dying. And then out of the blue, a big clump of dough, that could fill up the hole, just flew into our boat, landed in the hole and plugged the hole for us. And we're here to tell the tale. We can't even believe what happened to us. And Ben Ish Chai looks at these people in the room, the lady, these fishermen, and he says, you see, when you try to be a shutaf with HaKadosh Baruch Hu and do the right thing, HaKadosh Baruch Hu includes you even in more things than you know. So first of all, I would just want to say that everybody sitting here tonight is people who are attempting to be shutfim with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to include HaKadosh Baruch Hu in their daily life in every aspect. And we should be zeicha to the bracha of being included in even more, mitzvah gereres mitzvah. Now to expand on this nekuda for one more second, Rabbi Yerucham in last week's parsha is masber in a long maracha that Moshe Rabbeinu's status in Klal Yisrael was not as like a robot that HaKadosh Baruch Hu would instruct what should happen and Moshe Rabbeinu would just follow it out. He says Moshe Rabbeinu had a lot of discretion. He brings many rayas from different chazals that Moshe Rabbeinu participated in the halach yeluch of Klal Yisrael in the Midbar and in HaKadosh Baruch Hu's interactions with Klal Yisrael in a very direct and a way where he had a lot of input. And he explains that Moshe Rabbeinu had the role of a nemon. He says a nemon is someone that you could trust. You could give him almost limitless power, and you don't have to look over his shoulder. He's going to do the right thing every time. He says Moshe Rabbeinu was called B'chol Beisi Nemanu. He was the person who HaKadosh Baruch Hu entrusted with shefa, with guidance, with ability to lead Klal Yisrael and to be mashpia on Klal Yisrael. Almost, limitless, and Hashem didn't even have to look over his shoulder. And that was because he engaged in being a shutaf with HaKadosh Baruch Hu on the highest level. I would say it's apropos that tonight's guest, or Sheshiva, is someone who's noiseh ba'il for Klal Yisrael, takes Klal Yisrael's needs seriously, and is a mashpia and a malamed against Klal Yisrael, and we should be zeicha to gain from him in that vein.
This is chizuk for working people. Soilum is working people that work. B'nai Torah that work. Yeshiva light that were in yeshiva and in koilel, and they went to work. So I think that one of the most important things lacking is an understanding. How does the Torah look at a working person? Is it a lechatchila? Is it a b'di'evet to be a working person? So I don't know. I can't be for sure. I don't know if the Olam knows the sugya well. It's a sugya, an oisgebeite sugya. So Gemara in Brachas, on the beginning of Ketzad Mevorchen, the Gemara has Tonu Rabbanon, steht a Posik, Lo Yomush, Sefer HaTorah, Azay Picho V'Gisa V'Yoyim V'Loyla, Yochel, Dvorim Kichsav. Yochel, that when it says in Yeshua, what we read in Haftorah of Simchas Torah, that a person shouldn't cease to learn, Yoyim V'Loyla, Yochel, that's literal. That's what the Torah meant. Zog the Gemara, no. Talmud Loimer, steht a Pasuk, V'Yosafta Digonecha. Hanig Bohem, Minig Derech Eretz. Bahem, what's Bahem? So Rashi's mashma, Bahem means jointly with the learning, a person has to be Isaac b'derech eretz. He has to make parnasa. He has to feed his family. He has after the gonerach. Divrei Rabbi Yishmael. Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai Oimer Efsher, that a person is going to be chayrish b'shas chvisha, zoreya b'shas zriya, koitze b'shas ktsira. Everybody's going to work. They're going to learn also. So Torah matehei aleh, who's going to be the one that's going to be responsible that Torah in Klal Yisrael is going to be like it's supposed to be. Ella, he learns a Safta de Gonecha is not at a time when Yisrael is oisim v'tzoyin shel makom. When Yisrael is oisim v'tzoyin shel makom, the goyim are going to take care of us. We're going to sit and learn 24/7, and the goyim are going to be working and supporting us. They're going to get jobs. They're going to do their work. They're going to bring us. They're going to feed us. They're going to take care of us. And it brings a pasuk in Tanakh, in Yeshaya. So I did a little research. When was this pasuk? It never happened. It's going to happen. This pasuk in Yeshaya never happened. Even in the time of Shlomo HaMelech, where the famous Ishtachas Gafnoi, Ishtachas Teinosoi, it wasn't that many years, but that was the only time that Klal Yisrael enjoyed really unlimited prosperity, v'chulu, v'chulu. But even that wasn't then. It was. No, Rabbi Shimon Yochai is telling you a concept that really it's shaykh for a person not to work, and still the Eibush will take care of him. The Eibush will find a way of taking care of him. So Mamela, Torah Matei, don't be a stickler to Vasaf to Tigonecha. Then the Gemara says, Aharbe Osu Ki Rabbi Yishmael va'olsu b'yadam. A lot of people did like the halacha Vasaf to Tigonecha va'olsu Ki Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai v'lo yolsu b'yadam. There were people that did the Rabbi Yishmael, they made panasa, and they learned well, and they shtayed. And there were people that tried to do Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai and not have a job, and learn only, and money will come from somewhere else. V'lo yolsu b'yadam. And that's the end of the Gemara. And then the Gemara says that there were 2 months a year that Rava sent away his Talmidim. I don't want you to be in yeshiva. You got to go work, because if you're not going to work these 2 months, you're going to work a whole year. And I want you to have a job during these and these months. That's the end of the Gemara. Steht in Brisker Rav in Parshas Chayei Sarah. An amazing diuk. An amazing. That there's a Mishnah in the end of Masechta Kedushin, what kind of a profession a person should choose. So the Tana Reb Meir says, Li'olam yelamed Adam lebenoi melacha nekiya v'kala. Maybe today that's an accountant. You can't get a house with columns. But an accountant must be nekiya v'kala. What's ken mishinton not Nikia and not Kala by being an accountant. But it's not a dogma. Maybe my musagim are very limited. Maybe there's other Nikia the Kalas. But la'olam yelamed adam lebenoim melacha Nikia the Kala. Then the Mishnah says, Rabbi Nuroi says, Maniach ani kol umnes sheba'olam. I'm leaving all the professions aside. Ve'eni melamed es b'ni ala Torah. But I'm going to teach my kid only Torah. My kid's going to be an Adirei Torah. In fact, the Biskarov, that the Gemara in Erevin says that Reb Nuroi was really Reb Meir. Reb Meir's name was Reb Nuroi. So how could you have in one Mishnah, Reb Meir says, you should teach your kid Malacha Nekiya B'Kala. And Reb Nuroi says, Maniach ani kolum n'shalayim v'einim enamen el b'nei Torah. It's the same person. Zog the Brisker Rav. That in the Machloikis, Reb Shimon ben Yochai and Reb Yishmael is not really a Machloikis. The halacha in Hilchas Talmud Torah is like Rabbi Shmuel. Fakert, the Rambam in Hilchas Talmud Torah is very, very strong against a person sitting and learning and hoping that people are going to give him tzedakah. You're not supposed to. The Rambam says very sharp lashonos. So what's Rosh Shimon Yochai? That's the Rambam in Hilchas Shemitah B'Yovel. The Rambam in Hilchas Talmud Torah passes like Rabbi Yishmael. In Hilchas Shemitah B'Yovel, Zot Biskarav, the Rambam teaches us that Midosoi, Shol Shimon ben Yochai, is Nami Midahi. It's a Mahalach. And the Rambam is very Meirich over there. There has to be a person that's completely removed from Olam Hazadik worries. That's not his nature. And he goes with the Rebbeinu Shalom. And the reason he's going to have support is because he's like a Kohen. Just like a Kohen sits in the Beis HaMikdash and he doesn't have a job, then he doesn't have any real estate. The Shevet Levi is disenfranchised, but Klal Yisrael takes care of them. So a human being could elevate himself to become like that, and Memela Hashem will take care of him. And he brings kama v'kama psukim, Hashem and Aschaiskli v'koisim. But the halacha in Hilchos Talmud Torah is go to work. Avada. Go to work and learn. With real learning, not gepatert. Real learning. That's the halacha. The first time in history that such a chelik of Klal Yisrael, both here and Eretz Yisrael, is kipshutoi, misnayeg like Rav Shimon ben Yochai, is because this was the first time in history that Klal Yisrael hit such a tragedy of Torah Matei Oleha, that 1,000 years of Torah, both in the Ashkenazi world and in the Sephardi world, 1,000 years of Messiah and Torah was burnt to ashes over a 6 to 8 year period of time. And everything was decimated. Litvish Torah was decimated, Hungarian Torah was decimated, Polish Torah, Galiciana Torah, Sephardi Torah, everything was decimated. So the Gedolei Adar of 80 years ago, they made a collective decision of Torah Matei Oleha. And Lakewood is the flagship in the Goyla of such a thing. And Bnei Brak, Yerushalayim, and all the cities, Kiryat Sefer, Beitar, and all these places are in Eretz Yisrael but that's first time in history. So bringing us back to our question. This was an Eis Lasoi Seferu Teresecha that Gedolei Yisrael decided. For whom? Not for every Yachid. Every Yachid has a Rambam in Hilchos Talmud Torah. But they heard the cry of Rav Shimon ben Yochai, Torah Matei Oleha. So they made it fashionable against all odds in the Western culture, in a culture of making a buck, an American dream, and the whole world that was so foreign to not running after wealth and running after material success. They were able to pull that off and to save the Torah Hakadosh. So, a working person, anywhere but Lakewood, is not he doesn't have to verantworten that he's a working person. He's straight out of the Gemara, straight out of the Rambam, straight out of the Shulchan Aruch. That's the way a Jew has been since the beginning of time. The problem is when you're a working person and you live in Lakewood. That's when you become a working guy. And you have to verantworten a blue shirt, a white shirt, a white shirt, a blue shirt. Am I, am I not? What am I? What's my kid? It was good enough for my parents. It's not good enough for me. V'chulu, v'chulu. Because Lakewood is the place where the miracle of Torah Matei Oleha took place. Because with this miracle, which was the first time in history, and certainly the first time in anywhere in the Western world. That's a Gevarin Ametzias for Shevet Levi by the thousands and thousands and thousands. That those that, for whatever reason, went with the conventional mahalach of Hanik Bohem Minik Derech Eretz. But they're living in a town that didn't go conventional, that still doesn't go conventional, the Choresh Vahamazger, the Adirei HaTorah, like we call it. So there's an identity crisis. But if you don't live here, and you live in a place like Brooklyn, where a younger man that's Hanik Bohem Minik Derech Eretz, that sits and learns for an emistikkeit with chavusis, that fears with its tznius lifestyle, that's not over the top, and lives like a finer mensch. It's the most beautiful thing. They raise their children to Torah, they raise their children to this, they have no identity crisis, they have no this. Beautiful. Rev Moshe Wolf's Zecher Tzadik Levracha, Rav Rabbi, was my Rebbe. He was nifty yesterday. Covered God Allah Soloi B'Maisei. Who made the Emunas Yisrael? Working guys. And a Chabur of Chevra, in Camp Torah V'das Talmidim, one's an accountant, one's in business, one's a lawyer, one's a this, all such guys. And they came to him, Rebbe, move out of Williamsburg. We have so much out of the 8 weeks in camp. The Varmkeit, the Ruach, the Shabbos, the Ruchnius. Meloich take us and make with us a kehillah. 50 years ago. That's his kehillah. Today they became, because their children became Hasidim. Hasidim, whatever you call it. But they were America Chevra, the first generation. Torah V'das Boigrim, that all are working people. The teretz is, you could be a big Ben Aliyah and be a working person. But if you're already starting off with a self-consciousness that I'm a failure because I'm not in koilel, then of course the Yetzer Hara kicks in and says, if you're a failure, oib, like it says in Yiddish, oib shoin ben shoin. If you're not a success, so let's go all the way. I need a boat. I need a plane. I need to fly around. I got to eat in restaurants. I got to have a zazach and a zazach and a zazach, and I need to go. It is no, and like Rahman al-Islam, the Mesillas Yesharim writes, V'difa satanugim beheshlim kol tna'eyim. That's the Mesillas Yesharim's language. It's not some Kanoish. Kanoish Sharaf came out with this description called V'difas atanugim beheshlim kol tna'eyim. Who could translate me in English? Is any intelligent chaver here? No. V'difas atanugim, I have to ask Yehuda to explain it. One of my guys. No. No. Yoel is good in translating. No. V'difas atanugim beheshlim kol tna'eyim. Mesillas Yesharim is an expression. I don't want to do injustice to the translation. No, Yitzchak maybe could help me. The difas atanugim beheshlim kol tna'eyim, by the Mesillas Yesharim, it's running after, pursuing enjoyment, beheshlim kol tna'eyim, with everything, every little piece that it's shaykh to enjoy, not to leave anything behind. If in Vietnam they came up with a Naya Meichel, or somewhere in Hong Kong, or somewhere in India, beheshlim kol tna'eyim, get an OU, get a Rav Amakshe, Volov Shchita, and we got to have it. Beheshlim kol tna'eyim. Medifas atanugim beheshlim kol tna'eyim. You want to know how to play the Salmovis describes these things that you don't want to hear. B'tneim Eloheyim. How do you like that expression? That's simpler to explain, to teach. B'tneim Eloheyim. Das kannst du ja teachen? No? You're not interested.
I'm interested. I'm just too afraid to...
B'tneim Eloheyim. No? what I'm trying to say, and that's to me very, very important, this whole looking at oneself, that is not what you're supposed to be at some level. You're supposed to be 24/7 learner. And I'm not that. And then the Yetzer Hara kicks in. So anyway, you're second class. You're a working person. And it made a whole new appreciation of what life is about. It's not an emes. If you really ma'ayin Rabbi Shmuel's Hanig Bohem Minig Derech Eretz and Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai Shevet Levi in life, Tarascha Kevar, V'lachtecha Aroi. The three questions you ask every single Jew. Kovata itim latayra. What does kovata means? Kvius. Kvius means that it's a fixture in your life. Limud HaTorah is a fixture in your life. That's a working person. And there's Hashkafas, Hashkafic, halachic. This is halachic issues, Hashkafic issues. The wives are like this, the men are like that. What's Hashkafic issues? A working person in Klal Yisrael for the last thousands of years was the norm. But there was one Nebuchadnezzar segment in Klal Yisrael that the Gemara is Meirich on it, is the thing called an Amoritz. An Amoritz, the Chazal are very, very harsh with an Amoritz. The Chazal Vaistois feel that a person has the Bechira not to be an Amoritz. Our Gedolim were very, very, very tolerant and very, very validating of the Kantonistan. Everybody knows who the Kantonistan are. Those boys that were grabbed, the young kids that were grabbed and sent away by the Russian Tsar to the far countries, and they never learned anything. They didn't even know how to daven. Famous stories, one by the Baal Shem Tov with the whistle, and one by some other Gedolim. These Kantonistan didn't know. But a regular Yid that starts first grade or pre-1A, Chazal are not very tolerant and loving to an Amoritz. That does wissen. So a working person, Kodesh Kadoshim. Maybe Kachim Kalim, but it's pretty good. Shlomim, Pesach, Toida, all the Kachim. It's Geschmack. Forget Goyim can't have Kachim Kalim. They could only have Kachim Kadoshim. The Gemara says in Menachos, Shalmei Yovdei Kechavim, Oile saying, She'ein Libam Lashamayim. Only a Yid could have a Shlomim. That he could eat the steak, and he could b'shas ma'aseh bring a korban and be miyached yichudim kilu ikvaz nafshoy, and he still could go and have a geschmack meal. Al tavis hakodesh. So a working person is not a stigma, and the Yetzer Hara wants us to think it's a stigma. Amoritz is a stigma. So what does the Yetzer Hara do? He takes a person that went to work to feed his family, but he tells him and he whispers in his ear, and he puts him in the category of Kshayisi Amoritz, Gibakuk, which Rabbi Kiva writes on when he was an Amoritz. And what the Gemara says, La'olam Yisa Adam Bas Talmid Chacham, but he shouldn't be Noisa Bas Amoritz. And the Gemara says what a Bas Amoritz is. I just have to get this off my chest. Our boy said Yetzer Hara is making a fool out of us. By having us consider ourselves second class, we're becoming fourth class. We're not even a class if we're in Amoritz. So I don't learn 3 hours a day. Why? Because I'm a working guy. So of course, if you're not going to learn 3 hours a day, you're not going to learn 2 hours a day. If you're not going to learn 2 hours a day, you're not going to learn 1 hour a day. So you'll do the daf for 22 minutes, or because you make a daf on a smartphone, and that's what I'm going to do. So what's going to happen? What's going to happen? A Talmud Chacham you're not going to be, and if you're not a Talmud Chacham, you're the alternative is an Amoritz. Traditionally, a working person is a candidate. As the years go by, more and more and more, he's a candidate on being a Talmud Chacham. And if a person grows up and he's not a Talmud Chacham, it's either or. There's tzaddik Beinani in Russia, but I don't know what's in between a Talmud Chacham and an Amoritz. It sounds like those are the two things that the Gemara discussed. So the Yetzer Hara is very interested to be marba Amoratzim in Klal Yisrael. So he takes people that are doing the right thing. They're straight out of the Psak Halacha of Rabbi Yishmael. Hanik Bahem Minik Derech Eretz. They're following the Rambam and the Talmud Torah. But he makes them have a feeling of inferiority about their Torah. And once they have an inferiority about their Torah, so questions are always asked about following sports and stuff. A balabas is a choshevet title, a balabas. It's not a title of it's not a derogatory title. But a person who's not in yeshiva, who's not in koilo, who's working to support his family, he doesn't have the mitzvah of v'dibarta bom v'loy b'tvarim b'teilu. He doesn't have an issa bittul Torah. I challenge. Bittul Torah is only for a full-time learner. For a person that's hanik b'hem minik derech eretz, there's no issue called bittul Torah. I don't think that you can find any sefer that's going to tell you that. Now, I'm not saying a person that's yogeya b'malachtoi and b'toirosoi and comes a weekend and it's the first time he could take a breather, the children are in yeshiva, and he could take it a little easier. So he takes a few hours off on a weekend to what you call relax. That's not bittul Torah. Just like yeshiva bacha has bein hasdarim. Like yeshiva bacha has bein hazmanim. Like today there's such a thing as a quote-unquote off Shabbos. I never learned in a yeshiva that had off Shabbos. Because in my time, Bismedish Gavaya didn't have off Shabbos. So, and the yeshiva where I am never had off Shabbos. A real off Shabbos with a Friday and a Sunday, we never had. Not only that, we have yeshiva on Shushan Purim, and we have yeshiva on Shabbos Chanukah, on Sunday and Shabbat, Friday and Sunday of Shabbos Chanukah. But a yeshiva bacha also, a koil young man also needs a break. So a working person also needs a break. But that's all it is. But that chas v'shalom, a working person is not mitzuvah in bittul Torah. The isser bittul, that's called isser asay. The dibarta bom v'loy b'tvarim b'teilim is an isser asay deraisa. A working person has it just like a learning person has it. If you're entitled to a break, it's not bittul Torah. If you're not entitled to a break, it is bittul Torah. If you're entitled to a break, then in a yeshiva person that's full-time in yeshiva also is entitled to his level break. And a working person is entitled to his level break. But the bulbul hayetzer is that we're somehow second sub base yidden. We're not the same thing. And that's sheker v'chazal. It's sheker v'chazal. And the one that's perpetuating this sheker is the Yetzer Hara. And he's spending a lot of money perpetuating this sheker. He's doing a lot of things perpetuating this sheker. It's a sheker. I felt I was called to say a few words by working people. I'm not afraid to say the M's.
Yeshiva very thoroughly covered the premise over here, so I apologize if there's some redundancy.
No redundancy.
Some of these questions. So
we're going to do
that. We're going to do the Me'eh V'Echad now. The first question is a question about It's really a two-pronged question. When an employer sends his employee to a somewhat compromised situation, like a conference, or he provides the smartphone that isn't filtered, things that the employee will now have discretion on how he does it. Is the employer allowed to send the employee to such a...
Of course not. You never heard of Tnei Michel?
Trade dinar, maybe?
Is
I'm saying, is there a...
Take a person that's away from home, that could do whatever he wants on a conference, and you don't take precautions to help him, that it shouldn't be an assignment. I can't paskin the level of the Bnei Yiva, but he's a Messiah de Aver, and he's a terrible thing. An employer that has self-respect and has a respect for Yiddishkeit has to try as much as he could to not bring his employees l'idei michshel. And there's so many different manifestations of that. So many. What are you giving a guy? What's going to cost you to go down and give him only a tagged phone? Be a mensch. You're spending $150,000 for this person, giving him a position, and you're entrusting him with everything. So you have to make it hard for him, and that he should have to, go to tag, not go to tag, and take a few looks before he goes to tag. The person never looked at this stuff before. I'm here to Shiloh.
Being that most people...
There shouldn't be a conference of employers. This is only employees.
Most people listening are going to be employees. What guidance does the Yeshiva have for an employee facing this situation?
I'm telling you the truth. If we would look, if before we go to work, we don't look like we're having a yerida, but only doing what we have to do, and all the values that I had before are the same now, and while I was in Koilel, this stuff you don't do, then what changed? Because now you went to work. You went to be Mekayim, a din of Hanig V'Heminik Derech Eretz. Safta de Ganecha. Why you have different rules? Why something that you wouldn't have done when you were in Koilel are you doing now? Why? The times change, the hours change, the schedule changes, of course. But what's this new value system? By the way, those questions, I didn't see them be'iyun, but the guy throws around, whoever wrote it, Hashkafa, halacha. I want to know what's Hashkafa and what's halacha. I don't think you'll pick a Hashkafa, I'll make a game with you. Pick me a zach that's Hashkafa and not halacha, and I'll show you that it's halacha. Hashkafa is, am I a chassid? Do I believe in davening base? Do I say kegavna? I say b'memad. It's also halacha. Where exactly is Hashkafa and halacha? Oh, am I buying into the Satan Shita on Israel, or I'm buying into the Lubavitcher Shita on Israel? All right, that's Hashkafa. It's no din in Shulchan Aruch that you have to say this about Israel or say that about Israel. But otherwise, what's Hashkafa? Most of the things that the Olam likes to call Hashkafa is the Yetzer Hara. We'll start with one sheker. This is about Hashkafa. Halacha, oh yeah, of course we keep halacha. I only just have problems with Hashkafa. Come on.
Okay, so I apologize for the wording in advance. If one has a spouse or a partner in business who they feel is acting inappropriately, either in a halachic or hashkafic manner, what's their role? How do they go forward in dealing with that and confronting that? Maybe helping them, maybe,
No, what is it? If a Yugoman's wife, he finds her behaviors are not the standard that he would like to, and that he understood that he would want to build his house on those standards, too many times it's the opposite way. That the guy is
we can take him the tape, so.
No, but I'm saying, come on. This is the unusual case that she's the problem and he's the tzaddik.
What about in a business relationship? What about in a business relationship, two partners?
There's such a problem. There is such a thing as Oyla Rosh, Oyla Shcheinai. So a person I've had such things. People have been asking me about those kind of decisions where, Marshall, they're salespeople. And a person came to me that his partner is a tremendous mumche in the field, But every time he comes to a potential client, to a potential buyer, the boundaries are schwach, and he feels it's dragging him down. And I had no eitzah. I told him to keep, don't do anything together with him in business. Don't invest any time or anything because it's going to bring you down. If you say that happens. There's a total different dynamic. Two partners in business and a husband and a wife. That's a total different dynamic. A husband and a wife, as fast as possible, have to develop common ground al pi Torah. And it's like I'm sure everybody here knows this by now. I don't let any couple that comes to ask me for advice before the chasana, even before the engagement, leave my house without a basic commitment that they're going to have a built-in Das Torah in their lives. If you don't have a Das Torah in your life, you're, you're like a car without a driver. It's going to crash here and crash here. You need to have Das Torah in your life. You have to have a person that's going to be arbitrate. So when a family has that, so if one of them starts pushing the envelope, for whatever peer pressure or any other pressure, we go to the Shofet Shaviyamech, we go to the Rav, we go to our Das Torah, and that should take care of the problem. I'm serious. You know that's the unusual case, that the guy is stronger than the girl in Avodas Hashem. Unfortunately. Avodas Hashem.
Okay, question 3 is really what the Rishiva spoke about by Arichas. I'll read it anyhow, but in a town that's Baruch Shem Zeichet to have many full-time learning people, and with events to celebrate this accomplishment, what's a good mindset to keep in mind by people who are out in the work world?
I'm telling you, it's so important to do this. This is the biggest, you're talking about Hashkafa, the biggest vicious of the Yetzer Hara is to take a person that's doing the right thing and going to support his family, like it says in the Ksuba, like he's doing the basic menschlichkeit of Torah, and the Torah wants it, and it's not a compromise on learning. Nobody has an excuse to not be a serious learner because he has to support his family. It's sheker b'chazor. I'm willing to fight that issue. Nobody has to be a zav workaholic that he can't learn. Learn real. At least like he learned in yeshiva, or hopefully better than he learned in yeshiva. As good as he learned in Masifta.
I want to ask the Rishiva a question about financial literacy. In the generation where a lot of people found success very quickly and there's a tremendous pressure to keep up, and the investment in Gashmias that the Rishiva mentioned is expensive. Does the Rishiva have any hadracha in regards to financial literacy, not jumping to do?
This is just one way that I think that when you're dealing with financial literacy, you're already dealing with an unnecessary nisayon that should have been preempted for better reasons than financial literacy. The whole Hashkafa Sachayim, what's life? What is the Leben? What is life? What's the Goy's look at life and what's a Yid's look at life? I just walked in. Where was this? I can't remember. Today. And I'm walking into a place and one of the cooks or something, so I walked in with someone, she says, are you also from, there was an event in Manhattan, in Meridian, there was an event for the Gdolim coming from Eretz Yisrael. So I couldn't be there because I had my Einikol Sheva brachas, but I came for the first hour. So I was walking out, so some guy says, you're pointing to the person that was driving me, and he says, you're also from the whatever elite. So I told him, he's from the elite. You're not from the elite. Not me. I mean nothing. So, let me tell you something. You said this morning, Shalei Asani Goy. He's a guy with a beard and pay. I imagine he did. He said, you said this morning, Shalei Asani Goy? What does that mean you said today in the morning, Shalei Asani Goy? How many Yidden are there? From a Yidden. It's maybe 2 million. How many Goyim are there? Over 7 million. So when I say Shaloi Asani Goy, I mean all 7 billion. From Trump till the sewer cleaner. Every one of them is included in Shaloi Asani Goy. And that's an hashkafa that you have to feel. And if you don't feel it, there's something wrong with you. And the minute you would internalize that life by me and life by the Goy have mamish nothing in common. Life doesn't mean the same thing, and death doesn't mean the same thing. Zog the Erechayim HaKodesh. Zog the Ramban in Parshas Riyeh. Bonim aten l'Hashem Elokeichem. Right? Lois is goydedu. What's the connection? Because you're bonim to the Eibishter, then if you have a loss of life in the mishpacha, you can't scratch yourself and you can't pull your hairs out. You're excessive avelus. Ma'inyan Shmita Eitzel Har Sinai. Says Zokter, Goyim, life is the bodily existence for the Shim Shana, that they're in this world. When that's over, it's the end. Goyim don't live full past their Olam Hazeh existence. So when by them death is real, it's the end, it's death. What's a Yid's life? It's a Chayin Neshamis. His guf is a transient situation. Many of us are Gilgulim after Gilgulim after Gilgulim because that neshama continues going forever. Even a Mechal Shabbos comes to say Yisker on a Yontif. It was a few years in Manhattan, 2 years that I had to be Shavuos in the hospital. 18 years ago, 17 years, I had to be Shavuos in the hospital. And I davened in a modern Orthodox shul on Yontif. And the second day Yontif, they had a whole Yiska program. And Rachmana litzlan, guys were coming from the offices, lawyers and doctors. Well, Mechalei Shabbos, Mechalei Yontif came with a special Yisker book, and they came to say Yisker. What does that mean, you say Yisker? What are you doing? That's a recognition that your father needs something from you. He needs you to remember him and to pray for him, a prayer for the dead. What are you praying for the dead? Goyim have a musik of praying for the dead? This is the Arachayim HaKodesh. 7 billion Goyim are living with the awareness the life is here and it's over. And the Koimetzel from the Yidden, they know that life is not here in this world. How many people, if they would internalize this, would make B'Tneim Elohayim, would be right if it's a Tanugim Beheshlam called Noayim. So the problem is my credit card will max? That's also a problem. But that is the problem, that I'll max out my credit cards and I'll have credit problems and I might have to do a crime afterwards and then get arrested. Even that's not the problem. That's living a lie for your whole life. The problem isn't a peripheral problem that I'm going to get arrested for cheating on taxes. That's also a problem. It's Chil Hashem, it's v'chulu v'chulu. But that's where it's at. I'm living a bluff. I'm living a lie. Lebnisht. Matis Yoel used to chazan the Gemara. I think it's in Avches in Brachas. V'achayim yoidim sheyomusu. It's a whole Gemara there. Shaila Mesim know what's going on in this world after they die. The Gemara says, no, that's not what it means. Achayim yoidim sheyamusu, elu tzadikim shafilu b'misosam nikroyim chayim. V'roshoyim einim yoidim u'uma, that's v'shoyim that even b'chayayim em kuyim mesim. Matis Yoel used to say it all the time, this Gemara Davches, in Brachas. I think it's Davches. This is where it's a tremendous problem. So the Yetzer Hara finds tricks. And one of the tricks is that a person that goes to work that should be l'shemul teferes. So Salanter gave everything up to create Balabatim that learned Musa. One of the Balabatim that he created was a multimillionaire who lived in Kovna. His name was Rav Shraga Feivel Frank. Shav Kragel Frank died at 42. Rabbi Yitzchak Chanan in the hesped that he said on the Shaga Feivel Frank passed out a few times in the middle of the hesped from Tsar. This of Shraga Feivel Frank posthumously, the Moshe Mordcha, the Roshivas Labotka was his Eidim, Rabbi Zalman, who was Rabbi Shver, was his Eidim, Baltimore was was Rav Sheftel Kramer, was his Eidim, and he had a fourth Eidim in Aufgestellt Torah in the Welt, a Yid, a 42-year-old millionaire who gave Rabbi Sol Salanta was Madrichim, and he became a mayor La'olam Kulei, that Rabbi Yitzchak Chanan used to pass out at his Levaya multiple times in his husband. He started saying, Oiver 5, and he passed out. This is a different world. Why does a Balabas Lomani Gora? It was Marloisko. We learned it yesterday. Lomani Gora, because I did the right thing and I went to work, so I'm a loser. And the name of Alts geht rein in the Cheshbon. That's Nachze Chadish Lonu as Hamalucha. This coming off Torah. Of Torah Shlach. Boyu Nechadish Rav Shneya Zechoyna Levracha used to always love that pasuk. Boyu Nechadish is Hamalucha. Let's make us proud working people. A covet to sein a working person in Lakewood. We'll stell avek atzura. But the midrashim will have this. And what kind of children we're going to have from that? What's going to look like? What kind of shalom bias we're going to have from that? We won't need that, what's it called? That intelligence, what's it called? Financial intelligence. Cult of...
Shekayach, thank you.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.